Hello and welcome to the FISHCAST. We are the world's first and foremost Fishmans podcast.
That's
I
us.
am Ray.
I'm Christian.
Yes, we are. Well, this is sort of a bittersweet day. I mean, I know we have more episodes in the pipeline with live albums, 98, of course, rarities. But today we will be talking about the final Fishmans studio release,
Oh, man.
Uchū Nippon Setagaya.
You said that like a true white man.
Nippon. How do we feel about Nippon versus Nihon?
Well,
And well, for those who don't know what we're talking about, like Japan is one of those countries where the English word that we call it, Japan, is not actually like what people call it in Japanese. The word is Nihon, but I know that like the word is also Nippon, which doesn't sound like as good to me.
that's true, but I've heard the albums had a, like, with Nippon for like all my life. Or,
Yeah,
like,
no,
first
it's
since
never Uchū Nihon. I'm just like, why did they choose to have it be
That's because of radio music.
Nippon? Yeah.
I don't know, probably.
Anyway, before we get into the album, we have one sort of newsy sort of podcast announcement. So a couple episodes back, we had everybody rank their favorite early Fishman songs from the band's inception up until 1995.
Good time.
But now that we've reached their final album, even though we have some more albums to cover after this, we are going to have you guys rate every Fishman song ever. So this doesn't mean you actually have to like rank every Fishman song. We're just going to be doing another sort of audience top 10 and an audience ranking of the albums. So unlike last time where we only gave you like a month to send this into us, we're not planning on actually covering these lists for like a couple months on the show. So you're going to have until, let's say, like
Sometime in
to
December.
be something.
Or
No, it's going to be November, yeah.
I don't know anything.
Let's just say by the 1st of November. So by the 1st of November, it's going to work just like last time. You can email this to us. You can comment on this video or any of our videos. Or you can just comment on our Instagram, I guess.
Or if you're in the Fishcord,
Send it to Chris in the Fishcord.
there you go.
So yeah, it's going to be like last time, except this is going to be every Fishman song can be included. So we want you like your top 10 Fishman's tracks of all time. This can include studio tracks, live tracks, demos, B-sides, things that no one's ever heard of if you're really feeling kind of
Even like, I don't
hipstery.
know, from, what's that called? G-Con, the band before Fishman. If you
even-
really want to,
Oh yeah. If you're feeling it.
go for it.
You can do any track. Also, we will be counting Long Season as a track and as an album. So, I mean, I know
Anything goes.
Long Season will probably end I know which version will probably end up being the number one track, but maybe not. So who knows? But yeah, feel free to include Long Season or really anything else. So just the top 10 tracks. Send that to us, and then the albums. You're just gonna rank every Fishman's album. So
Does this thing, okay, is this going to include bootlegs though? And,
this
like,
doesn't include
everything?
bootlegs. This basically just includes the albums that we are talking about on the podcast. So, of course, all of the main albums, Long Season included, can be on your
Corduroy's
list.
Mood.
And then I would say Corduroy's Mood as the main EP, and then just the 3 or 4 live albums that we're going to be talking about. So that's O Mountain, the 96 live album, Hachigatsu, and 98. So you don't have to rank all these albums. Like if you haven't heard an album, you can leave it out and just rank the ones that you've heard. But those are the ones that you can include. So that'll be interesting to really see how things stack up. I know last time I was kind of surprised by like
What ended up being
some
number
interesting. The number one album last time was Orange, but the number one song was Nantetano, which was kind of
Oh,
surprising
yeah.
for me. I thought it would be Melody, but also there were some
Whatever.
strange songs in there. Like what's the first song on Kingmaster? Was
Oh,
in the
Eco
top 10?
Buster.
Yeah, it was kind of like what the
Remember
hell?
when Concha Odoroki showed up twice?
Yeah, shout out. So, and the main thing that'll be interesting for me this time that we're doing all the tracks is just to see how many of those early period songs actually appear in the top 10 here, or if the top 10 is just dominated by like Setagaya stuff. But we'll see.
One person will vote for Good Morning,
That'll be it.
and it'll be me.
All right, so yeah, just by the 1st of November, send that to us, and maybe if you have a really hot take, we'll talk about it on the episode. So let's get into Uchū.
Good album.
Some background on this album. So, as we know, Fishman signed to Polydor, and Polydor basically told them, we want 3 albums in 2 years, which is kind of
Ugh.
insane. So, in 1996, Fishman's had 2 albums. They had Kuchu Camp and Long Season. So, by the end of 1996, they went on another short tour around Japan in support of Long Season. And this is where we got the 96 Long Season. that we'll talk about next month. And then in 1997, an exhausted band returned to their Waikiki Beach studio and began working with Pro Tools to create new music. This was the first time the band had used Pro Tools.
Pro Tools existed back then?
It did.
Oh, wow.
But I think you can kind of tell. I mean, like, I would say that Uchū is definitely their most, like, electronic and sort of
Yeah, I guess
Pro
so.
Tools-y kind of album.
Have you ever used Pro Tools?
No, but I mean, like, you can definitely hear the way that sampling and, like, kind of...
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I get what
it's
you
Pro Tools. But, so yeah, they returned to their studio. They were making new stuff because they had to. In July of that year, they released the song Magic Love as the lead single for the upcoming album. Kind of strange when you know...
Especially when you see the artwork. Legendary artwork, by the way.
Oh, is that the one with the
floating-
fork and
the spaghetti?
The spaghetti.
Oh,
That's fun.
Or pasta of some sort. I don't know what it is.
So a few weeks after the single release, the album Uchū Nippon Setagaya, or Space Japan Setagaya as it is translated, was released on an unsuspecting world. This was the final album of the so-called Setagaya trilogy, and the album's title was apparently coined by Zach. And I feel like the Fishmans Wikipedia actually sums up the title of this album really well, so I'm just going to straight up quote them. Thanks, Kyle.
Love you, Kyle.
So it says, lyrically, the album focused on personal everyday life while retaining a wide worldview that inspired the title of the record, steadily magnifying from space down to Japan and down all the way to the city of Setagaya.
Is Setagaya a city? I thought it was a district.
It's a I don't know, because like Tokyo's huge.
Yeah,
so I think it's one of those cities where there's like cities within the city.
Okay, I'll accept it.
Maybe. So and I couldn't have said that better myself. Thank you, Kyle. So
Kyle,
how much do you know about this album's like production period?
I don't know a whole lot. I don't know a whole lot about any of the production periods of any of their albums.
Nice, because I feel like this album probably has the most interesting like lore.
I think someone was talking about it in the Fishmans Discord, but I didn't have a chance to read it. But please enlighten me.
Yeah, so I mean, well, we talked some about how Long Season was sort of the result of like maybe some disagreements or just kind of angst about having to make all of these albums in the short period of time. They sort of threw it together because they just needed to have an album. And this was sort of similar but a little different. So it took Fishmans longer to record Uchū than any of their previous albums, and their recording sessions were pretty sporadic and off and on because the band was busy with touring, they were busy with press events, they had just released 2 albums, there was a lot going on. But Polydor Records had insisted that the band release 3 albums in 2 years, so they had to finish the album by the end of 1997. So here's a question for you. Are record labels bad? Like, is there a good thing that a record label has done?
I think on paper, there's really nothing wrong with a record label when you just take it for face value. But I think the way they're used today, it's a good way of, I don't know, maybe easily promoting and marketing people's music.
Getting your music out there, but also
I think just generally, it's you really
constraining
need one.
you, yeah.
I mean, you need one in this day and age, but I don't think you should need one.
Although, when I was thinking about this question, it occurred to me that Long Season, as we know it, would not exist if Polydor had never signed
is the
Fishmans and
one
forced
good
them
thing.
to make all these albums. If there was no constraint, Fishmans wouldn't have felt the need to do that.
So there's one good thing record labels
thank
have
you,
ever done.
Polydor. So, the production of Uchū also involved disputes between Shinji and Zach about the sonic direction of the album. They disagreed about its core sound, and Zach's influence on the album declined as a result. He's only listed as a co-producer on this album rather than a main producer.
Wow.
With Shinji producing the rest. So I think this is sort of where that idea comes from that, like, this is a Shinji Sato solo record.
That's incredible.
We saw that on the Fishman's Conspiracy Iceberg.
You know, it's a lot like Pet Sounds in that regard, wouldn't you say?
Explain. I do not know the history of Pet Sounds.
Oh, well, I don't know. Brian Wilson just kind of took control over the entire thing, and the band wasn't really in full agreement with the direction he was trying to take, but he insisted on a bunch of things. He basically just made the whole thing with the band kind of just helping out.
That's Uchū.
Yeah. Basically.
Wow. Brian Wilson, Shinji Sato, same man.
Collab when?
So, as we know, the subsequent Fishmans live studio album, Hachigatsu, didn't even feature Zach at all. It had a completely different producer. So I think as a result of this dispute between Shinji and Zach, we can assume that Shinji had much more influence over Uchū's sound than previous albums. And Motegi actually had the following to say about Shinji's creative presence during the Uchū sessions.
Ooh.
He said, Sato's solo work became stronger and he had a hard time dropping it into the band. But the biggest problem was that the demos were too complete to know what to do as a band. What should we add to that? If you add anything to the piece, it would destroy that beautiful world. So what it sounds like to me is like Shinji was at home just making demos and he was like, hey, these are cool. And he shows up to the studio and he plays them and he's like, add some stuff on this. And they're just like, What? Well, and I thought, like, there's that one, I don't know how many demos we've heard from this period, but we have that one on the comp for,
Sorewataru no Kipunsa.
Sorewataru no Kipunsa, thank you. And that's a demo, but as we can see, like, it's totally a complete song. Like, it sounds like a studio song.
If it was released as, say, like an extra track on Uchū, or if it was just on Uchū, it would just sound like a track.
So I feel kind of bad for, like, Yuzuru and Motegi. Like, I can see them being in the studio and Shinji brings in this song and he's like, hey, put some stuff on this. And they're just like, what?
Wow.
He's kind of like, Shinji, I guess, in this period is like that kid in your group at school who, you know, you get like a group project and Shinji's like, you know, I'll just do it all.
Which, for a school project, is good because that means you don't have to do it.
This is true.
But if you're a band, it's a little different.
It's kind of disheartening. So apparently Motegi and Yuzuru actually considered letting Shinji just continue Fishmans on his own during this recording process. They were both going to leave. They were like, hey, man, let's just, like, you seem to have a better idea of what this is than we do.
Wow. Imagine that if Shinji were continuing to live. Because it was theorized that, like, he would just keep the band going with Motegi. But what if it was just him?
Just
what would
him.
the music
I
sound
think these people stuck around because they had, like, you know, they like Shinji, they like the music still, but it was just like a matter of creative contribution. So Shinji's ideas seemed complete without the band, and they were too creatively drained to really add anything. So, and I also found a great quote from the band's manager about this time period. He said that it was painful. If U2 made an album like Uchū Nippon Setagaya, they wouldn't need to make another album for 5 years. Zach and everyone else were really tired. Kensuke Ojima, Hakase, and the others had already left. I couldn't stop working with the band, and I guess Zach and Kashiwabara don't give up. But if you're working with Sato, you won't be able to be in charge because you'll be working for him instead.
Wow, Sato really taking charge. Wow.
So he really does embody that sort of like creative mastermind idea, right? Where you're sort of like uncompromising and you're like an asshole.
Wow, a true inspiration.
And I put also Shinji's an Aquarius. Fun fact for those people who are into astrology.
AKA not me.
I know, like, I'm not super into it, but I know that a few of the main Aquarius traits are very much being kind of like in charge, you know everything, you're very much like a domineering presence. So I sort of get why Shinji is an Aquarius.
Wow, the more you know.
And both Motegi and Yuzuru, I think, were Sagittarius, which I don't know anything about that. I know they're just like cool people. So shout out astrology.
All right, well.
What sign are you, Chris?
I'm a Leo.
Hey.
What are you?
I'm a Scorpio.
Wow.
And I get a lot of shit for it.
Yeah, for good reason.
So anyway, I guess you could say this is the band's like breakup period. Maybe if the band had had a longer discography, then they would have actually broken up, gotten back together. But since this is their final album, it didn't really happen. But, you know, Zach was no longer the main producer, and Yuzuru would leave the band by the end of the next year because he just didn't want to be in the music industry anymore. So, as the Fishmans wiki states, the album's themes focused on loneliness and an observation of the world around Sato, which mirrored his own feelings of helplessness with this rising tension and isolation.
Aww.
Shinji.
It's so sad.
It's so sad. And that's the thing, I mean, we'll talk about it later, but this album sounds very, like, pleasant. But I feel like it's really dark. Like, it's the darkest Fishmans album, in my opinion, like, thematically.
Maybe. And not all of it sounds super pleasant. I mean, there's a lot of it that sounds, at best, like melancholy.
Yeah, and aimless and sad. So that's sort of, yeah, the entire background of this album, just very tortured, very... But as we know, there's this myth that, like, sadness creates good art, or, like, pain breeds beauty.
Which isn't true.
Which isn't true, but it's kind of true.
Sometimes it can be true. In the same way that any feeling can.
I mean, honestly, look
art.
at look at Kanye. He's a genius because he's always like going through mental illness and like everybody hates him and he's just like a tortured soul.
So if you hear that, just get a mental illness. You'll be making
wow.
the
If you're an artist who is just like happy and well adjusted, like you should just quit. It's like Chris, you make music and you're a disgusting human.
All right. So what's the next section we're
talking about? The cover art.
And
yes. This is sort of just your section because I'm pretty sure this is your favorite Fishmans cover, right?
Oh, this is my fish. This is my fish.
This is my fish.
This is my favorite Fishmans album cover. It's also probably my favorite album cover.
It's the wallpaper on your phone. I think
it is true.
Right?
If you were to open my phone, my lock screen is this album cover because It's my favorite.
So tell us what's so good about it.
I don't know. It just looks pretty cool.
It really has that same energy of Uchū, I think, where like there's just three homies and they're kind of like hanging out. Except whereas in Uchū they were just like flying. Here they're just pointing
to like the sun
to
or
the
like some
sun.
light. I don't know, just the colors, the way they're all pointing up. I don't know. It's just very like, yeah.
It's very yeah. And then there's sort of this weather motif on the cover that we get in the album too, with like this big cloud and rain. And on the back cover of the physical edition, there's this stylized art of like a dude's head full of fire. So we sort of get this like water-fire dynamic. It's cool. There was also a theory on that Fishmans Conspiracy Iceberg that these 3 clocks on the cover were the times they were showing were actually the dates of future Fishmans releases that were planned.
I saw that. I also saw, I think, unless I just somehow dreamt this up, I saw on the Fish Chords someone say that, how did they word it? It was like, it had to do with their age, like each of their ages, but I forgot like what they said.
Oh, like was it like the time they were born or
something like that?
Predicting the times they'll die?
Well, I don't know. I'll have to look it up. But it could be either one of those. It could just be random times.
Yeah, I think it is. Well, because there's a time for Uchū, a time for Japan, and a time for Setagaya, which means that but except like Japan, if I'm correct, only really has one time zone, maybe 2. But I don't think the time in Japan on the cover and the time in Setagaya are different.
Yeah.
But it would be the same time. And then what's the time zone in space? There isn't one. So
0.
They must be either random times or they have some sort of meaning.
I don't know.
Who knows?
Let's ask Shinji. I need to stop making that joke.
Yeah, every episode you're like, oh, let's just get Shinji on the podcast.
I'm sorry.
Shinji's a ghost. We'll get a big Ouija board. I think I've made that joke before too. Wow. Life is absurd. We're just going through a cycle. Okay. And there are songs on this album that also do that.
That's crazy.
So, adjectives.
Oh, I forgot. Okay, hold on.
Chris forgot again. I'll go while Chris. So we're really running out of letters here. I got D. Chris got K. Nothing too weird this week.
Can I just go first? Because I have 2.
You can go first. Yeah, if you got
whatever.
2. It's cool.
I really don't know how to explain them very well. But
cool with a K.
First one is Ku. Second one's Klux. No, the first one's Keynesian.
Chris.
Like Keynesian economics. Okay.
He's literally scrolling through his phone looking for adjectives right now.
No, because there was two that I was able to kind of. One of them was kooky and one of them was kind.
Kooky and kind. I like that.
No, it's cool. But apparently, if this album's as dark as you say, then
it's kooky.
It's kind of kooky. I mean, some of I don't know, the third track, Magic Love's kind of kooky.
Yeah, and the songwriting is definitely the most out there the band would get.
Yeah. So that's the best they can come up with.
And how is it kind?
I don't know. It just sounds nice. Just roll with it. K's a horrible letter.
I really feel like I'm pulling all of our weight here. I got fucking Z, and I came up with Ziphophilus.
Okay, fine. Okay,
here with K.
This album's pretty Kurdish, if I were to say so myself.
Okay, I'll go. So I got D, and I found good words that actually work really well.
Okay.
So the first one was deistic, which deism refers to God. So this album is godly.
Well, I mean not God, just a God.
A God. But it's sort of a distant God. That's the idea. And this album it's godly in that cosmic kind of sense.
Because it has space in the title.
It has space. It's also a spacey album. It's also distant. That was my second word. It sounds like Shinji is slowly floating away from his band members and also from his life. There are lots of songs that are kind of drawn out or they're dreamy, but in this sort of depressing way where you're just dissolving from reality. Mm-hmm. It's really sad. But it's a space album, I would say, but not in a cheesy way like that one song on Neo Yankees that sounded like, I forget the name of the song.
Tsukara Nahito.
Yeah, that one. It's just that one just sounds like a sci-fi song. But this album isn't it doesn't have sci-fi vibes. It just evokes this spacey sense of cosmic longing and eternal loneliness.
That is, I've been to space before, and I can assure you that's what it's like.
You're just an astronaut who's drifting through nothingness. And then my final one was drowsy. This music is all very tired sounding. It's probably Fishman's most quote unquote chill album, but it's also really depressing. So aside from Magic Love, I feel like this would be a great album to do heroin to. It's just very slow and drawn out, and it evokes gray skies and August rain and heavy sleep.
I could use all 3 of those things right now.
You haven't been sleeping at all the last few days.
Including heroin. So all 4 of those things.
I mean, this wasn't an adjective, but I was just writing words while I took my notes, and I put the weighty pull of melancholy on a weary heart. That is what this album is about.
Yeah, if you didn't know, Ray's a poet.
I'm a poet, and I don't even know it.
All right,
So I mean, yeah, that's... Do you want to get into the track by track?
Yes.
All right, track 1 is Polka Polka. So this title didn't translate to anything when I checked it out.
Is it like
but
an onomatopoeia?
Yes, our friend, Mr. One Chops, who was on our last episode,
shout out.
You know, with his translation list, he heard from someone close to the band that Polka Polka is a Japanese onomatopoeia for nice warm weather or balmy weather. I don't know how you have an onomatopoeia for weather.
I thought it was going to be related to rain, like the sound of rain hitting the ground, but no, it has something to do with
and I don't know
weather.
who he heard that from, but he claims it was like, we know that he has his connections with the band, so.
Oh, should I, before we get into the track, I should mention some people in the Fish Cord were not too happy about us censoring the news.
That's really funny.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway.
Okay, so I know that it was your favorite Fishman song for a while, right?
It's still like top tier and top 10, top 5, I don't know. It depends on the day, but yeah, I would say that's...
Yeah, I mean, I love the song. It's very like comfortable and just cozy. Is that sort of why it resonated with you?
Yeah, also, like, it doesn't really sound like anything else on the album, I would say, either.
Doesn't sound like any other Fishman song.
Yeah, and this is the first track.
Yeah.
It's so, I don't know, those keys in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, once you hear that, you know, like, okay, this is going to be a top-tier album experience.
I also remember you saying that this was like one of the most accessible Fishman
Okay,
songs.
let me
Like basically
explain
what he said was that like if he was gonna show Fishmans to someone who wasn't into the band or they only listened to like normie music, he would play. He didn't use the word normie,
okay.
but he was saying that, you know, Polka Polka might be one of the more like immediate songs, and I was always kind of confused by that because it's very strange.
Okay. What's the most normal Fishman song you could show somebody?
It would be like something on Neo Yankees.
No, but see, that's I feel like a lot of that's just too cheesy, even if it is like more familiar.
Well, I'm talking about like song structure wise. Like Walkin' is like very much just like written in like this pop song format, whereas Polka Polka is like not that.
I know, but I think Polka Polka treads that. Oh, whoops, sorry. I think Polka Polka treads that line of like being kind of out there, but it doesn't do anything like too crazy that would set a lot of people off.
Yeah,
it's relatively minimalistic,
nice.
But there's still great melodies. I don't know, the production's really nice. So yeah, it's not because it's the most normal Fishman song as much as it's just one that I think a good amount of people could get into because it's rather unoffensive, but it's not bland.
Yeah. All right, I agree. I agree with that.
Anyway, it's the best Fishman song.
So to me, this song is a great opening track because it feels like waking up. You know what I mean? Like it feels like this sort of slow, easy light coming through the windows. Where I think we might be back to like our orange juice idea. Like you're drinking some OJ, you're kind of sleepy, but you know there's a brightness coming into the world.
But instead of orange juice, we've kind of grown up, and now we're having a nice cup of coffee.
Or like alcohol in the morning.
Alcohol and coffee.
Yeah.
You know, people do that, right?
And also, yeah, Chops' translated lyrics for the song mentioned sleeping a few times, so I don't think I'm too far off that it's sort of like waking up. It's just a comfy song. You mentioned it, the really cool laid-back jingle of like keyboards and guitar. It just has this easy sort of flow to it.
It flows very nicely. It's very, how do I put it?
Flowy.
It's very, what did you say? It's very like effortless.
It's effortless.
It's
Yeah,
just
that's what I
kinda,
mean.
like,
It doesn't.
floaty.
It's not really a jam per se, because it doesn't really like make you want to dance. It's just kind of like you're nodding your head and you're just like, yeah, this is the song. Also, I think the real MVP of this song and album, once again, is Hanzi. She's just incredible. You know, I feel like if people say that Shinji is really carrying this album, I think Hanzi has just as many memorable moments as Shinji. She was given more prominent parts in Long Season, but I think Uchū is the album where she truly becomes like a core fish man.
Because, yeah, I mean,
fish woman.
I feel like when those strings come in, like, that's a peak of the song.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, ooh, man.
That's what's cool. Like, it has this really powerful emotional climax, even though it's so like laid back and low key.
Yeah, it's still a low key like climax. You don't notice it's there, but like you notice it happens.
Yeah,
right?
it's a song that you could listen to in the background and you wouldn't really like pay much attention to it, but in like a very nice way.
Okay, I was gonna say you were
I love it.
words there.
And then, I mean, really all the other thought I had on this was just that, like, between this and Zutomai on Uchū, these are two, like, perfect opening songs. Like, I can't think of that many albums that have such a great opener that sets the table.
And also albums where the opener
Sounds nothing like the rest of the album.
Oh, that. And also that it couldn't be anything else but the opener.
Yeah.
This track wouldn't fit anywhere else in the album.
Yeah.
And like, at least as well as it does as the opening track.
So this isn't in my top 3. You know, this is one of those albums where everything is, like, perfect. But is it in yours?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's in my top 3.
Which
I don't know why I had to think
one?
What do you mean? Oh, like where is it?
Yeah, where is it on the top 3?
I'd say number 2.
Number 2?
Yeah, I don't know. I had to think about that. If it's
Poca
so clearly
Poca
number 2.
Representation, underrated track. Did they ever perform this live? I don't think I've heard.
No.
Never.
No, because this
I get that. It wouldn't really translate very well.
There are a couple songs on this album that I don't think have been, or I think they have, just they weren't played live at the one album people care about. So.
Cool. Any other thoughts on Poca Poca?
First time I listened to this was in my community college parking lot.
Oh. What time of day?
It was after class. It was like noon.
Oh, also shout out to all the people who commented talking about where they listened to Long Season. That was interesting. I'm sorry that we didn't really have any more interesting places we've listened to it aside from like driving to a donut store. But I'm
going to
glad.
take a quick detour from Talk About Uchū to ask you to refresh me on this. I don't remember that.
Oh, well, like, you know, in our episode, we sort of talked about like how listening, like the place you listen to Long Season changes like your emotional.
Oh, no, I know that. But, like,
aspect of it.
what is this donut shop we went to?
Oh, that.
Yeah, I'm asking. I don't remember.
Oh,
that.
no, there was that time that we listened to Long Season when we drove like all the way to the donut shop out in Glendale.
Oh.
Yeah.
And was Jonathan with us?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. we listened. We didn't listen to that version though.
Well, we listened to Long Season.
Okay.
Anyway, but we haven't listened to it anywhere interesting. But I'm glad that our listeners have, because that's cool for you. So cool. Second song, Weather Report.
Oh man, the moment those hi-hats start playing, you're like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, no, I put that, like, this is probably the most Pro Toolsy song on the album. Like, this one is definitely, like, Fishmans doing a much more electronic kind of, like, sequenced thing.
Speaking of electronics,
Than they've ever done before.
Like, for a while, every time I'd listen to the song, I mean, even now, the biggest, I don't think they're inspired by them at all, because it was happening around the same time. Sounds like a Boards of Canada song. It sounds like
low-key,
in a beautiful place out in the country, like those chords
But
and the drums.
Well, so when was that released?
Late 90s. So yeah, it wouldn't. I
Well,
don't,
but honestly, I mean, we know that like Fishman sampled Aphex Twin in that live performance of Doyobi no Yori, so I wouldn't be too surprised if they were listening to Boards
yeah,
of
let me
Canada.
see, because I know Music Has the Rate was like 96 or 97.
Yeah, I mean, either way, we know that like Shinji was listening to a lot of different music. So
That's true. I just don't know if like.
Well, and if not Boards specifically, there was a lot of cool like ambient kind of stuff happening in
For sure.
in the 90s.
Yeah. Oh, it was actually 2000. So I don't know.
wow.
Maybe Boards of Canada ripped them off.
Shinji
Who
never
knows?
got to hear Music Has the Right to Children.
No, that came out in 97.
Oh.
The EP came out in
Well,
2000.
maybe he heard it. Nice.
But either way, besides the point.
Very cool. Yeah, no, it's very ambient, but not in like not the song isn't ambient. It just includes these really lush sort of synth pads.
Oh, they're
That are
so
like-
nice.
So this is probably, I'll just say it right now, this is probably like my favorite Fishman song of all time. Maybe. It's not, but
Okay.
it's so...
You can't just say things
Oh,
like
it's so close.
It's really good.
We talked about this one time. So this is one of the songs that has English lyrics. He says, I think weather, but it kind of sounds like he's saying, I think wessa, because like the TH translated in Japanese kind of just becomes like an S. And Christian posed the question of like,
Oh yeah, if you as a primarily English-speaking musician were to try to cover this song and like maybe perform it live, would you say I sing weather or would you say
you would say I think weather, because if like I know it would sound weird if you said I think weather, but it would sound weirder if you were like a white guy and you said I think wessa, because then people would be like,
Yeah, that's kind of racist, dog.
it is kind of racist.
But I don't know. It's just
The good thing, though, is as a result of this conundrum, the song is practically uncoverable by Western artists, and no one will ever play it live.
Is it because, like, the way he's speaking?
Yeah.
Because it's very, like, he's, like, rapping.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that too. I mean, I think I mentioned this on our Uchū episode, how at this point in Shinji's songwriting, he almost starts doing like the spoken word thing, where it feels like every line has like 5 syllables too many, and he's just sort of like rambling. And this song is the epitome of that. Like, there's this one where he just keeps like talking.
It's like, dude,
and you're like,
slow
that's
down.
so many words. And I know, like, we might be hearing this differently because we're English speakers. I'm sure it might sound normal, but there definitely is a difference between this and the more sort of rhythmically structured style of songwriting they were doing on the earlier albums.
Yeah, definitely in that first verse, he's really doing that. He's just going at it.
Yeah. So then, you know, the song is really calming. It's also epic. We get this really propulsive bass line with these gorgeous ambient synths, and then we get to the chorus. The chorus.
The chorus only shows up. The chorus only shows up like 2 times, but like both times it happens, it's like.
Yeah, no, I think this is Fishmans' maybe their best chorus outside of like Walk In and Do You New York.
like how those are your other 2.
Well, the
choices.
Walk In chorus is great, no, but this one is just like monumental. Like when it comes in, it feels like the clouds are breaking, and it's just like.
And the second time it shows up, there are these background vocals that are added that are.
Yes.
Ooh,
Oh,
my
and
God.
Shinji's voice, like his performance is so good, and it's filled with so much passion and longing.
And then it like turns into a shoegaze song near the end, which is cool.
Oh yeah. Well, before that, we
Okay.
get these chipmunk vocals.
Oh yeah.
This is also an element that makes it very kind of like electronic and sort of goofy. It sounds like Crazy Frog or like I don't know. The way I interpret the song, if we're taking the title literally, is that these might be like little raindrops that are hitting the ground, and they're like.
This isn't a song about like. I know it describes like rain.
It does describe rain and just
Yeah.
sort of like this release.
Wow.
But do you like the chipmunk vocals? Do you think they're out of place?
I don't think they're out of place. I've never really given them much thought. I think they fit in really well. They are goofy. They like if I were
But
making this
Fishmans
song.
are goofy.
That's true. But if I were making this song, that wouldn't have been like a sound that would have came to my head. But in
Yeah.
the song, it works like.
Yeah, it's
Better
like
than you might
when you're
think.
eating a meal and there's this interesting ingredient that you wouldn't have thought of, but then you're like, hey.
I
Kinda
accept
works.
it. Yeah.
And then the guitar comes in. So yeah, the outro of this track, the I think weather chants become almost kind of like a spiritual mantra. Like they're using their psychic abilities to like pull the rain down to earth. Because you know, I think weather. It's like you're thinking it,
Manifesting
it.
into the physical world.
Oh, it's so cool. It's life affirming. So yeah, this outro. There's 2 guitar things happening. There's this super funky, sort of repetitive line on like rhythm guitar.
Yeah.
And that's like the shoegazy sort of like ooh. But then also there's this guitar solo happening in the background,
Yeah.
and that's just like insane.
It's gnarly.
It's kind of mixed like a little low, but I'm
Which
glad
is-
it's behind the rhythm one.
It could be turned up a little louder.
A little louder. So here's my question. I saw in the credits one of the electric guitars on this track is played by a guest musician named Reck with the, like R-E-C-K with the R mirrored around, so it looks really cool.
Oh.
He was a punk bassist in the band Teenage Jesus and the Jerks.
Wait, really?
Yeah, do you know what that
Yeah.
is? I didn't know what it is, but it sounds cool.
Whoa, really? They
Yeah.
actually- Wait, hold up. I'm
And
gonna say-
anyway, this guy has worked with John Zorn and Brian Eno.
Oh my god.
But
wait.
the thing is, he's just credited for electric guitar, so I'm not sure what he's playing, but I'm pretty sure he's playing the solo.
It's gotta be. because
gotta
I
be the
know-
solo.
Because I know Shinji gets a little wild on the guitar, but like.
Well, and Darts is also on this album playing guitar. So
I know. Let me just see this. Is it on here? Yeah. Wow.
yeah, right.
Hey, you're right.
So yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that Darts is playing that rhythmic line, and then Rek is playing that crazy solo, because it sounds more like a solo that like a punk bassist would play.
That's true. That's true.
But I think that was a really cool feature, sort of like when they got people on Uchū to come play different styles of guitar. And it's just this kind of tone of guitar playing that we don't really get on any other Fishmans album.
And it's funny because you would think, if you were to think of a song that would warrant a solo like this, Weather Report wouldn't come to your mind.
Right, because
And
it's so
they're-
chill, but
yeah.
like it's epic too. And then great lyrics on the song. I was looking at Chops' translation, and there was this one where he says, you know, like Shinji says sakana in the track, which is the Japanese word for fish. And I had never looked up the lyrics. I was always like, that's funny that he's talking about fish in like a Fishman song.
Hilarious.
But the line is,
Absolutely hysterical.
sometimes I stay in my room, I feel like a fish in an aquarium, a fish that does not swim.
Oh.
And there's a parallel with like COVID, like this year.
Oh my God.
Kind
Yeah,
of,
I think he predicted
staying
it.
in your room. But
Yeah.
that's such a sad line.
Oh, that's got me
Fish
down.
in a bowl.
Wow, is this a reference to what's that song? Like
Fishbowl. Oh, I thought you were gonna say Fishbowl by Caro Carbonito.
No. What is that one song? Just two last souls. It's a Pink Floyd song. Don't worry about it.
Pink
Who
Floyd.
cares?
Weather
Wish you were
Report. Also, I think the length of this track is great. I mean, like another sort of unconventional thing about this album is like the song lengths and the structures. They just really seem unconcerned with like making pop songs anymore. Like it's like an 8-minute song, and it's just it goes where it needs to go. It's not trying to be this really long epic thing, but it's not also trying to be like a 3-minute thing. It is what it is.
It knows what it is.
It knows what it is.
It just goes.
It's my favorite song on the album.
It's not my favorite song on the album.
I think it's probably the best song of the Setagaya trilogy.
It's my third favorite song on the album.
Oh, yes!
Wait.
Yeah? You're telling me that your
Yeah.
2 and 3 are the first 2 songs on the album? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. Weather Report. And, this has some really cool live versions. There's the one on Gatsu that we'll talk about when we go over that album. But, I'm kind of disappointed they didn't play this one in 98. That would have been... Ugh.
It's just one of those things where it's like, we already think 98's like a perfect album.
If they added Weather Report to it.
True, but also like, first off, where would it go? Second off, you think they'd have to remove a track? Like, I don't know. Like, would it be better?
Just play like a 10-hour show and play their entire discography.
I want to see, because I know it was played. Was it played at that one bootleg that I always try to shill? Liquid Room.
Shilling
97.
Fishmans bootlegs.
Yeah, okay. It was also played at a 97
yeah,
12
yeah,
12
yeah.
at Live in Liquid Room.
And honestly, I like the live versions of the song, but I feel like nothing really beats the mix on the studio version. Like, there's something about like the electronic nature of it that doesn't translate completely to a live setting. So
Yeah.
this is in my opinion, this is like the version of the song. Cool. So then the third song on this album is Ushiro Sugata, or Retreating Figure.
I just thought of this now, because when you said Poco Poco was like waking up, it seems like this trilogy of songs, like, because this song starts off with that
The ticking clock. Yeah.
I don't know. It sounds like you're progressing from like waking up into the morning. Like, I don't know, maybe he's like
Weather Report was like
breakfast.
looking out the window, and this is like...
I don't know, your day is getting started.
I have a different theory about the song. I don't think Shinji's cooking breakfast. I think he's like dying.
Okay, no, that works. I'm just talking completely on the tone of these songs.
Tonally, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean, like how there's sort of a lyrical and thematic disconnect with like what it sounds like, because it sounds very comforting. Because this song could be a song for you like making scrambled eggs, but
also
lyrically it's like, oh.
Okay, yeah, maybe tonally it's like that, but I mean, some of the production, like the mixing on his vocals on some of these lines, they're just like drenched in reverb. He sounds like he's in the other room. What's
Or
up
he
with
sounds
that?
like he's spiraling into like nothingness.
Yeah, it's just kind of like that mix of like everything else sounds perfectly fine, but
Yeah.
the way these vocals are mixed, it's kind of strange.
So I think we had said that the song formed a sonic pair with Shio Asesha on Uchū, because they're sort of these understated, like acoustic-y kind of like, but they're progressive. They don't really have like a chorus per se.
Yeah.
But they go to interesting places, but they're still kind of short. So yeah, the song opens with the clock ticking. It's Hans Zimmer's soundtrack for Dunkirk.
Anyway.
Or it's the ticking clock counting down all of our lives until the moment that we die.
Specifically Shinji.
Specifically Shinji, though, yeah. And, the title is like a retreating figure, a figure like retreating into nothingness, into the void. Am I thinking too much into this? Or is it like he's retreating into the kitchen to make scrambled eggs?
Pour himself a nice glass of orange juice.
Maybe. I mean, I might be the only person who thinks this is like a really dark song.
I think, okay, maybe, I don't think it's necessarily completely just 100% dark, but I think what's interesting, the chord progression, if you want to get a little theoretical, the main chord progression that happens in the verses is like this major chord and a minor chord. Like it's the same chord, like the same root note, but it switches between a major chord and a minor chord, like kind of this dichotomy of like happiness and sadness. Because major keys are associated with happiness, minor.
Yeah, I do.
I just think it's, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, no, there's definitely this sort of like herky-jerky kind of like
Is it happy or
pull.
is it
Yeah,
sad?
it's strange. Well, because like we get the verses that are kind of just like cheerful, but then we get these sections that you were talking about where everything gets drowned out in reverb, and Shinji's vocals suddenly sound like he's like screaming for help, or he's like somewhere bad. And I think these are like the coolest vocal moments on the whole album. Like it's so druggy and despondent, and Shinji's just wailing. Like I think of the one where he's like, yeah, and it's like a black hole is like sucking him into it.
Well, as we know, black holes don't actually suck their into it. Anyway,
Theoretical physicist Christian Garcia.
music theorist and theoretical physicist.
You know what I mean? It's like this interesting, and they come out of nowhere too. Like it's not like the sort of pop songy like nature of it flows into that. It's just like there will be the nice part of the song, and then Shinji's like, oh.
Is that what he said?
Yeah. And the lyrics too. He says, retreating figure, I'm lonely. I don't look so good. Everyone will be doing fine without me. Like, this song is a suicide note.
Oh, man. Or if not a suicide note, it's him just like coming to terms with the fact that he will die.
I think I don't look so good is like the best line translated. Because I think that's sort of like, listen to the song, you're just like, are you okay, bro? Like,
Oh, man.
So I think this was a good time to talk about like, these ideas about Shinji's death. We've sort of touched on this before, but it's kind of been shrouded in a bit of mystery. Like I know the official cause of death is like a heart attack, right, or like a heart condition.
Yeah.
But the producer on Chappie suggested that Shinji killed himself, and I honestly think like if you listen to this album and you listen to like Yurameki in the Air, it's depressing music. You get the sense that Shinji was going through some shit. And I don't think it's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I think even though he was the one that was like a real drunk, funky guy, right? Like the producer for Chappie.
No, that was the producer for Kingmaster.
Oh.
Producer for Chappie was just like a guy.
Oh, okay. I got it mixed up. Either I was gonna say like I don't know, maybe these are just some like him just.
Yeah, no,
crazy,
that's what I think is like he wasn't there for the whole band, so I don't know how much he knows them. Maybe he's just like a crazy tinfoil hat guy. But it's just like I feel like if any of my favorite artists this year wrote a song that was like, you'll all be fine without me, it'll be better when I'm gone, I would be like,
Well, especially if they tried to mask that message with like very nice, pleasant sounding music.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too is like I don't know if this is about Shinji's own mental state or if it's about like the band collapsing, because we know he might be saying like he's a retreating figure because there was this idea that he would go off and be without his bandmates and be making solo music. So it might just be about that. Maybe I'm looking too much into it.
But I mean, retrospectively, it's
with everything tainted by death, that's kind of like,
oh, well.
So I don't know. For me, this is a very sad song. It's very disturbing. It's kind of funky and weird.
I don't know if I'd go as far as to call it disturbing, but even before I knew what it was about, there was something like lingering in the background that told me like this isn't just a happy song or like a nice little ballad.
That
the
outro,
really nice.
That outro. Yeah, no, the outro is kind of like sweet, but it's also, well, and I know he's not saying, I know he's speaking Japanese, but it's always sounded to me like he's saying perfect love in the outro. Like, perfect love. And I'm just like, that's so sad. So this is just how I hear it, and it's just like, like he's grasping for something he'll never have.
Luckily, the next song is a much more cheerful song.
Is it?
It's a joke.
In the Flight. So I wrote, we're only getting sadder from here. This one is really cool. It's unlike any other Fishmans song, I think. The instrumentation feels like Feels by Animal Collective, That sort of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of like acoustic, but there's this steady like pulse, and it's a little bit electronic, but it's like a campfire song that you're just kind of like.
I feel like this is the
Dying
most
to.
peaceful song. Nice. This is the most peaceful song, I think, next to like that beat. Because I don't think with like Weather Report.
Weather Report.
With Weather Report and Uchū Sagata, it feels like this blend of happiness and sadness. But this one just feels, I don't know, contemplative maybe.
Yeah, like if there is a sadness in the song, which there is, it's more of like a resigned, sort of like tired sadness than like, because Uchū Sagata sounded like he's like struggling.
Yeah.
Like fighting back against his demons. But this one is more just like a long sigh.
He's made breakfast. He's, reflecting on it.
I like this theory that this whole album takes place inside like a kitchen. So it's basically a lullaby. Like after the numbing chaos of the last track, this one just feels like someone waving goodbye. Very slowly.
I like how this is
sadly.
the track someone's waving goodbye in, but then the next track is.
Yeah, no, we're gonna get to that. And Shinji's vocal performance here is so cool too. Like he's hitting these really high notes.
He's kind of struggling to hit
and
them.
it's just like
that moment.
I think this is the heroine song, right?
This or Walking in the Rhythm.
Oh yeah, true. No, but this one even like I know that there's this theory that Fishmans are gonna go like post rock, and this isn't that. But I mean I know this sounds like a lot of like Sigur-Rós, like early Sigur-Rós to me too. It's just like steady sort of lullaby, sad, druggy,
A lot
oasis.
of reverb.
A lot of reverb.
When those drums come in, those like with like the unlatched snare and like those. In the beginning, there's like those whistling sounds too.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, just some of these.
It's like a folk song kind of, but it's just like a sad folk song. Also, Hanzi plays harmonica on this song.
That's her?
That's her. Yeah, no, I looked
Wow.
it up. She plays a ton of instruments on this album. She plays like mandolin in addition to violin and harmonica. It's
What
kind
a
of
G.
subtle, but in the outro it really becomes prominent. And I think that's sort of, it adds like the folky, sad aspect.
I shouldn't bring up the 98 version of the song, should I?
Well, you can if you want, but I feel like this is one where they're so similar for me. Like I love both, but I feel like the mixing on this one might be a bit more like interesting.
Maybe, but I also think they're two very different songs.
Yeah.
That one like builds up into something
Yeah.
immense. This one is 100%.
That one's more of a journey. This one's
Yeah.
just like. And then more crazy, depressing lyrics. He says, outside your door, I thought about it. In 10 years, you should be
Yeah.
able to do anything. But of course, that's just a lie. Of course, you can't do anything. I can't do anything.
I actually read those lyrics on the albums.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because it's,
Like
a
in
great-
English or Japanese?
In English.
Oh my
I'm
God.
not gonna- yeah.
Well, and it's just this, I think that's the thing of this idea is just like resigning yourself to knowing that your situation is hopeless. Like he's saying, like, I can't do anything. Things aren't going to get better. So why even struggle against it? I'm just going to like sleep. It's a depressing episode. No, but I feel like that sometimes. It's just like, I don't know. Because you're told growing up, like, you're going to be an astronaut.
Like, I don't want to be an astronaut.
That's what's interesting. Yeah, I think like this album is spacey, but it's not because they're going to space. It's like they're dreaming of this like idealized life that he never had. Okay. So yeah, apparently Shinji said that the song is about facing hardships in your life, and you can really sense it. Feels like a 1,000-pound emotional weight strapped to
I
your
feel
body.
like that's kind of understating it. Yeah, it's just about dealing with hardships in your life.
That was his quote. I don't have the quote, but he was basically like, yeah, he's like, we all face like hardships, and it was like,
Then he goes and like kills himself.
are you sure that's what's
Like, I
going
feel
on,
like It's a
man?
little more serious than that, but
Yeah.
it's fine.
It's like it's a quagmire of
Maybe don't use that word
Depression.
anymore. I know it.
in the flight. And I mean, this is one of those where I struggle with it because it's like, it makes me feel a lot more than a lot of these other songs in the album, but I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite songs because I don't listen to it a lot, like on its own. I don't want to feel like shit.
I don't. This is honestly in the bottom tier of the album.
Yeah, I get that.
Or at least in the mid tier. Not any insult to the song. This is like better than most other songs ever made.
This is true.
But I think, of course, in the context of the album, I think the sequencing is a little strange, but only because of what comes after it.
Yeah, no, I think in terms of this flowing after Retreating Figure, it's like...
It's perfect.
It's perfect. Oh, I think that's my favorite, like, 2-song combo on the album.
Really? Mine's a Backbeat and Walking in the Rhythm. That's just me. But also, I do think was a relatively good idea to put Magic Love after this song, only because I think it's kind of funny.
Yeah, so let's get into this. This is probably the strangest transition in any Fishmans album. We get, this really depressing In the Flight, and then we just open with a woo, and it's like Magic Love.
Let's properly introduce this. This is Magic
Love, the fifth song. So I've played this whole album for my dad before, and he was actually digging it. He likes Long Season, and I was like, hey, let's listen to this then. And the first 4 tracks, he was like, yeah, keep it on. Yeah. And then Magic Love immediately starts. He's like, nope. Next song. And I was like, oh, I get that. This one, I feel like, looking back on the album, this was the lead single. And I think that makes sense because, the album wasn't made, it was made over a long period of time. And we know that as the album process went on, the actual band became less involved. So this is probably the song where the band itself is like doing the most. Like it sounds like the most like earlier Fishmans. It's probably the first song they made for the album, and that's why it's the lead single.
I'm sure they made it and they're like, okay, this is about the kind of music we're gonna make. And
yeah.
then as progress.
That's what's funny. It's like you really could take the song out of the album, and the album would probably it would still work. But I feel like they had to include it because it was like the lead single.
I think this song's a nice blend of the type of music people might be more familiar with Fishmans for, but it does include a lot of those like production elements in this album with it as well. Like it doesn't feel like just them going back to their old sound.
Yeah, like it's repurposing these reggae elements into something interesting. But like they definitely play with these more electronic textures that they've been doing on the rest of this album. The synths on the song are so bubbly. They're just like effervescent. That's the word.
Have you seen the music video for this? No, it's just
I have not.
It's just like, I don't know, balloons and them like walking around this street.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Like most of their music videos, it's kind of low budget and stupid, but it's excellent.
I said the song feels like drinking a grape soda. It's fruity and bubbly and optimistic. Well, and that's what's interesting too, is mainly like just the feeling of it. Like I don't think it's necessarily the sonic textures that feel so jarring after In the Flight. I think it's just that In the Flight was so depressing, and then Magic Love is seemingly like one of the brightest songs Fishmans have ever made. But if we're being very cynical, I think we could say that, in my theory, this album is all about someone, Shinji, coming to terms with his own death. And sort of, it's not like stages of grief, but it's more like stages of acceptance. And I think after the hopelessness of In the Flight, Magic Love is maybe like a hallucinatory sort of high or like a distraction from his true situation. You know what I mean? Like the depths of In the Flight were so low that there was only up to go from there. So he
not that much
like Magic Love,
but yeah.
So it's almost like if you view it as kind of like satirical, like fake happy, then it's kind of sad.
Yeah, a little bit.
Hansi.
Those little those little string sweeps.
Well, and that's what's cool about Hansi, I think, is like she's so versatile with what she does. Like, she's sometimes playing melodies, she's sometimes playing harmonica, she's sometimes playing these little flourishes. You know what I mean? Like she's not doing like something super complicated on the song, but what she does adds like so much texture, and that's one of the things that makes it unique and makes it sound like an Uchū song, is that it has all these other sort of instrumental things going on. I love Hansi. She's my favorite member. I'm gonna simp for Hansi.
I mean,
big rip to my girl.
Yeah.
I love Hansi.
Yeah.
I really do think, honestly, if we're gonna say that like Fishmans got better over time, it's because they brought Hansi into the band.
I would say Zach, but he also produced Neo Yankees.
Also, so. Zach like isn't doing much. I mean, and this track he is, I guess, because it was the first one they made. But
to be fair, I mean, you can hear when he did those remixes for Walking in the Rhythm, that is sort of indicative of like the sound they're doing here. Like it seems like they were kind of working in tandem with each other, and he sort of ushered in.
For sure.
Like Sato had something to do with it as well.
Yeah, it's not. That's what's interesting to me is like if I hadn't had read that Zach wasn't as involved with this album, I wouldn't have known, because I think like at this point in the band's trajectory, Zach's like his sound has been such a prominent thing that it sort of rubbed off on Shinji. So it's not like Shinji has a completely different production style. It's pretty much like the same thing. So yeah, it's like a Willy Wonka-ass Purple Bubble Soda Fizz song. I get why people don't like this, and I think this is commonly touted, maybe along with Slow Days, as like the worst song of the Setagaya trilogy.
I guess. I hate to to bring up Brady music again, but this is also the only track that isn't bolded on this
I
album.
understand.
No, I get it. It sounds out of place. I think it works on the album.
It's
but
cool.
You could also take it out and the album would still work.
It's definitely a song that I prefer more on its own than in the album. Like in the album, I always think like, okay, here we go. But if you just like, I listen to the song just on its own all the time because it's its own sort of feeling.
I wanted to disagree with you. I wanted to say like the opposite, that I prefer it in the album. But I don't know if I prefer it in the album. I think
it's fine in the album. Yeah.
I just never return to it. I never think if I ever want to listen to a Fishmans song, Magic Love never comes to mind. Not because I dislike it.
It's an overshadowed thing. It's so good, but everything else here is like so much better.
Yeah, it's like
this is my least favorite song on the album.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Nothing comes close to it for me. And the lyrics here do sort of imply my hallucination theory. Shinji sings, "A shining smile, I might have created it. Maybe it was because of the weather." So it's this idea that like there is happiness around him, but he's like,
maybe it's just because the weather is like kind of implying it rather than
it's like a rainbow. Like the rainbow isn't actually real. It's just like an illusion. Oh, the happiness that's there is just temporary. Oh. This album is so depressing, Chris.
Yeah.
And it's, Magic Love. Anything else to say about that? Magic. I do think it's interesting that they just like didn't finish the album and then choose a single. They just like made a song and they were like, that's the lead single. I don't know if I wonder if that was the same process on their other albums. That just like the first song they made was the lead single.
Was there a lead single for Uchū? Oh, Night Cruising.
Yeah, it was Night Cruising.
Do you think that's also a pretty like unique song on the album?
Yeah.
Maybe they started with that and they're like, this is it.
That would be, if we ever get to interview Fishmans, that would be a really cool question. Just like what the like track listing process was like and like the sequencing and like how did they sort of come up with the flow of the albums. Fishmans, come on the show. We'll ask you all these questions. So cool. Track 6. We're near the end of the album because there's only 8 songs. This is Bakubito ni Nokate, or Riding in the Backbeat.
Backbeat. Backbeat.
Backbeat. Sometimes people incorrectly, like, they say back seat.
Riding in the back seat.
Clearly,
back
that is
seat. Is it just like it clearly? Well, why do they confuse it?
Back
He clearly says back, bro. If you think it's back seat, come fight us.
Stop listening to Fishmans.
This one took a while to grow on me because I remember when you first played this album for me, we got to this one and it sounded kind of like samey. Like I think every song so far in this album has introduced like a new idea or a new concept, but by the time we get to this one, it's not necessarily doing anything new. But so at the time I was like, it's like Fishmans type beat. But
it takes a while to introduce something like incredible, and it's that violin thing.
Yeah, it's just like this growing, like what it's doing very well, even if it's not like super novel.
It's the most like down tempo, put it in the background type beat.
I don't know
like
what the song was,
the
but someone on Radio Music compared this to like a Portishead song, and I can kind of it's trip hoppy. Yeah.
It wasn't Wandering Star, was it?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. Yeah, it's something. It's very much in its time. This is my 3rd favorite track on the album, so it's grown on me a lot.
Okay. It's like my 4th.
I love this one, and this one is like my favorite version of the song. There are live versions, but this one's longer than a lot of the live versions, and this one just like
it has more
hammers
atmosphere to it.
Yeah, it's like a totally dreamy trance that you're stumbling in. It's sort of like a come down from like if Magic Love is like this vision that's just like bubbly and happy, this is sort of like a vision that's just like murky, like the happy dream turned into sort of just like a limbo.
Yeah, because it's not, I wouldn't call it a happy song, but it's not like it doesn't reach the depths that the other songs do. It's
Yeah, and it's kind of just weird too. Like it's definitely dreamy in that sense that there's just strange things happening, like this ascending guitar line that's really funky, like the do 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 do.
Kind of jazzy. There's also that part near the middle there's like this synth pad that also kind of ascends, but it's like very like
Yes.
atonal. Like it's not in key with anything. Like,
Yeah.
you're just kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
that's what we're doing now.
It's the synth is playing this really cool melody that's very moody, and it's just like, and the lyrics here are kind of just abstract. Like every day is watching you is the main sort of English lyric that we get.
That's like one of the best moments on the album.
It's
cool.
it's kind of like intimidating. Like you're stumbling around this big city and you're just being watched by like surveillance cameras or
Hey,
something.
I would compare this track to Atarashi Hito in a way, and the
Honestly,
fact that
yeah.
they're like the melodies that are used are they're happy, you could say. They're
Yeah.
at least like I don't know, they sound nice, but everything else about the song just feels very off.
Very off, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's surrealism as like music, I think.
It's also really nice.
It's very nice,
I
yeah.
could sleep to this song. This song is very peaceful. There's also-
I compared the feeling to like, you know, it's sort of like every day's watching you, this sort of dreary like repetition that's going on. So I compared it to like OK Computer, not because it sounds anything like OK Computer.
it's like that same idea.
It's the same idea of like living in like this foggy like 1984 surveillance state. All the buildings are big gray skyscrapers and you're just wandering around and it's raining and you're like, ugh. Ugh.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's also that nice like car alarm sound that just happens over the entire song. I don't think it's a car alarm, but it's just
like
that
this
beeping.
droning like
And sometimes it like speeds up. It's just, it's one of the first sounds that you hear in the song. But as the song progresses, it's still happening. It
Yeah.
just kind of bleeds into everything else.
I really do get your Atarashi Hito comparison because, like you said in that song, there are all these just like little sounds that happen that are on their own. They're just kind of like peculiar, but together they make this weird collage of like, ugh, oof.
Of course, that song's like a lot better than this one.
The song is Orwellian. That is the
If I
word.
had the word if I had the letter O,
Orwellian. So I think after a while, like the repetition in the song kind of blurs all the different sections together, and the song becomes more of like a feeling than like a clear musical composition. And so it feels kind of absurd. I mean, I'm always talking about absurdity, but if you've read like Samuel Beckett, Waiting for Godot, this idea of like doing something over and over again in the backbeat, like the backbeat just happens. Like you're not really in control of what's going on. You're just like existing, progressing.
That's true, but I feel like if you're gonna keep touting absurdism, you should read other absurdist.
Oh,
writers.
I have.
Oh, okay. So-
The Stranger? Yeah. the other absurdist book. So this song it's hard to talk about because it's just doing something so abstract.
It's I don't know. Puts me in a very weird mood.
But it's sort of like a hypnotic. Yeah, it's like it's Atarashi Hito. Like just
Yeah. Although this does build into something that Atarashi Hito doesn't. Like when those strings come in.
yeah, that's
and
true. It has more of a climax.
You're like, they also sound kind of. Forgive me for using this word. It's kind of European. The
Yeah,
way
I get
those like
that, yeah.
I don't know those like notes that it's playing sounds kind of.
No, yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
It's just
I love
think
this
of
one.
Venice when I hear this song.
And this one is really like tied with everything else for my third spot because I know that like I think the reason why I put it here is just because it's grown on me so much. Like I don't know if I truly like it more than like In the Flight or Retreating Figure, but it's just like so unique and it's so I feel like it's underrated. It's slept on, so I'm repping it in my top 3.
A bit. I think it's underrated, but it's not like people.
People
that
don't
just, like,
dislike it. It's just like
people. Yeah, people would rather listen to this than Magic Love, but
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah, not a lot of people.
Is this the second lowest rated on Rate Music?
think so. For me, for a
I'ma
while,
cry.
I was kind of in that same boat. I liked it. I was like, oh, this is that one song. It's like 8 minutes, and it's like, oh, this is kind of long, but it's also nice, so I'll give it a pass. But now, like, sometimes I'll just play this song, like, on its own. Like, I wouldn't do
Yeah.
that with, like, Magic Love or In the Flight, but
I know we talked last time about if we could choose any Fishman song to turn into like a long season, like to make a long song. I think this one would be really interesting. Like imagine like a 50-minute version of In the Backbeat with just kind of increasingly strange passages going on, but it's still
feel like-
anchored by this weird drone.
eventually there would just be, like, a collage of field, like,
Yes!
nature
Oh.
recordings.
No, but not like city recordings, like cars and like, it would just
Maybe,
be kind
yeah.
of, it would
Yeah.
end with like an ambient section. Oh, I want this.
Hey, Zach.
Hey, Zach. Let's
we-
just remix it.
Yeah, okay.
Cool. So 7th song, the penultimate song. Oh, the beast. Walking in the rhythm. This is your favorite song on the album, I think.
This is probably no, this is my favorite song on the album. This is probably one of my favorite songs ever. I said that about Kancha Adaroki too. Those are like the two Fishmans songs.
We love Fishmans.
Like, I don't know. You could say long season, but
This is slightly shorter than Urameki Studio, right? Or is it longer?
no, it's shorter.
It's shorter, yeah. So this is the third longest Fishman song behind Long Season and Urameki.
Yeah, is the studio version only 13 minutes?
Yeah, I think so. And this is like 12, right?
Okay. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I thought it was 16 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the live.
But either way, I think it's really cool having such a long song here. Maybe after the success of Long Season, they were kind of like, let's do it again. Except this one is very different because it doesn't progress. It just like dissolves.
It sounds like, near the middle, it sounds like it's going to go somewhere crazy. But then it doesn't. And after that, it just...
Yeah, speaking of repetition and hammering home like the absurdity of existence, just the structure of the song is really cool because it opens up, it's very funky. We get this super juicy fucking bass line.
It's the...
So juicy. It's so thick.
I mean, now it's my second
It's
favorite
so
bass line,
catchy.
but for a while, it was like my favorite bass line
I think it's
ever.
my favorite Fishman's bass line.
It's my favorite Fishman's bass line. But, oh my god.
Oh my god. And this is why, I mean, even though Shinji had more control on this album, there are still great moments. This one for Yuzuru, just playing like this godly bass line.
So good.
It's so good. And I love the way it's mixed. Like, it's very upfront in the mix. It's very loud. But yeah, we open with that. We open with these cool vocals. It sounds like it's going to be this epic thing. And then, it sort of keeps going. There's this big violin solo, but then the song just kind of like tapers
Keeps
out.
going.
But the elements drop. So like,
If they don't drop, they just like start fading away.
But I guess we'll get to that. So
we need to get to that violin solo too.
So yeah, I interpret the song as sort of like a Pied Piper procession into the afterlife. I think like this whole album has been our main character sort of waking up on his final day,
Making eggs,
making peace with his own death, briefly
Making
having a
eggs, yeah.
hallucination of a better world with magic love, and then sort of stumbling through the streets, or maybe limbo in Backbeat. So walking in the rhythm is finally when death arrives and is carrying him. See, it's sort of like The Black Parade by MCR, but it's like very different. And it's just like, I think that's why it's so repetitive, and this idea of walking in the rhythm. And that's what Backbeat was too. It's part of the rhythm, this rhythm of life and death. Like, you don't have just like going. And that's what I picture, like this line of souls like wander, because it's group vocals that are chanting like walking in the rhythm, just like they're all ghosts.
And it'd be like, it'd be different if this was like a jauntier song. And like it gets turned into that, like on the 98 version. That becomes like, I don't know, a jam. But on this album, it's like farthest from a jam.
Yeah, no, it's haunting. Yeah, so the song is just really haunting and bleak, like with the notes that are happening. It doesn't feel like a dance. It feels like a dirge.
A little bit. I mean, it's funny because it starts off relatively funky. That bass line, those vocals, like the chorus, quote unquote. I don't know, the entire vocal section. Shinji's vocals are mixed a lot lower than they normally are. They're not distant per se, they're just quieter.
Well, and the main melody too is very sort of just like not what you'd expect from like an upbeat song. Cause it's like na 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 na. It's like So yeah, we got the piano. Oh, yeah, so the piano is cool because like it's one of those elements, sort of like in Long Season, where it's introduced early on and it feels like one thing. It's sort of adding to this like funky nature of the track. But then once it's on its own at the end of the song, it feels completely different, and it's just like depressing. Because it's so sparse, and it's like it's just playing the same notes over and over again, and it's just like,
oh my god, yeah. It's probably the most hypnotic song I've ever listened to, or one of them. It's so, like the first half of the track, you kind of get in that groove. There's a point when the vocals drop, like after the vocals happen, it's just the bass line, it's just the drums, and it's kind of like grooving. You're like, okay, it's a little haunting, but it's still got a groove to it. Then the violin solo happens. We'll get into that later. Then once those group vocals come in, it completely shifts. You're like, oh, I'm gonna kill myself.
Yeah, and it's just like,
And like, like listening to the song when you're like depressed, like you just like loop the song and you're like,
deconstruction, like introducing these elements and then getting rid of them. And that's where it differs from Long Season. Is Long Season introduces the elements, gets rid of them, but then brings them all back. Like there's a different version of Walking in the Rhythm that they could have made, where like it breaks down into that nothingness, but then the bass line comes back in and the drums come back in, and you're
Kind
like,
of like what they do with like Urameki, because Urameki, the studio version, just like fades out and it ends and it's like sad. But on the
Live,
version,
they do it differently.
They bring it back, and you're like, oh, this is nice.
and I think that is like important. Like the way you structure a song can totally impact its thematic sort of meaning. So that's why, because we know that like we associate being upbeat and having all these instruments with like happiness. So when you end your song, getting rid of all of them and basically just having like a looping piano, it's just depressing and it's about death. So this violin solo, I'm not even gonna talk about it. You can talk about it. It's the best thing.
It's like the most like arresting moment on the album, because it happens, like it comes out of completely nowhere.
Yes.
And like there's so much like delay. There's like 2 violin solos like happening.
Yes.
Like I don't know, she plays these like nice like double stops, and she's like kind of going crazy at a certain point. She just flurries, and this.
I kind of view, maybe if we're looking at this through the lens of death, maybe the violin solo is like that final gasp, the final reach towards life. But even that ends and it gets succumbed, and the piano.
Yeah, because it doesn't resolve. Like it doesn't end with a resolve. It just kind of like
just happens.
It just kind of like scurries away, and she kind of like starts like scraping her violin a little bit. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's over.
It's so cool. Like I love what Hanzi is doing on this album, and I'm glad that they gave her all these moments to shine. So there is a lyric in this album where Shinji says that he's on the cold path.
Oh.
Which is like, sort of, that's what I mean. Like you're walking on this path, but it's like cold, and it's just, where's the path going? Hell, probably.
Or just somewhere that's not Earth.
Yeah, no. So the beginning of the song, you're like, heck yeah, I love rhythm. You see the title, you're like, I want to walk in the rhythm too.
And for a while, you are walking.
You're like, I'm walking in the rhythm, and then later on, you're like, I'm walking in the rhythm.
Because they keep, it's funny just going on the lyric page, because it's just an entire page just walking.
I don't want to walk in the rhythm anymore. I think Chop said that they say walking in the rhythm 167 times in the song.
Wow.
Excellent. And I don't want to walk in the rhythm that long. That's what I think too. Is the song could be even viewed as like life, sort of compressed into like 12 minutes, because you're born, you're like, yeah, like the beginning part is like your childhood, you're hopping along, you're like, this bass is funky, and then the violin solo might be like the peak of your life, where you're like 40, 50, you've had your family, you're really living it up, and then the rest of the song, your body
walking in the rhythm.
You're forced to walk in the rhythm. That's what's like, your body starts collapsing. But that's what's weird about, like, because walking in the rhythm, it's less of like a phrase that means like I'm choosing to do this, and more of like someone barking an order at you. Like, walk in the rhythm. Do it. You have to.
Yeah, because
until you're just so tired that you collapse.
Take it on the surface level. Like, walking in the rhythm just sounds like a fun, like, music thing.
Yeah.
You're just, like, walking along to the rhythm of the song. But after a while, like, I have to keep up this rhythm for the rest of my life until I die.
It's that monotony of, like, day-to-day life. Just, like...
it's kind of absurd.
Walk in the rhythm. Walking.
And then even like the vocals, they start like just slurring the words.
Yeah. it's really. So honestly, for me, like when I think the track is supposed to sort of tire you out, because by the time the track ends, I'm less like, I'm like, thank God, like release, sweet release from the rhythm. And it makes me think on it. I just thought of this, like that. You know that Katy Perry song "Chained to the Rhythm." I think that's sort of the same idea, right? It's like we're all chained to the rhythm. Like we're forced to be dragged along by this groove.
Funnily enough, that song's like 10 times more boring than this.
Well, also, I don't know, that song has more of a political slant too, whereas this is just about like death.
Yeah.
But we should do a mashup. Walking in the chained rhythm.
No.
I'll do it.
No.
Is there anything else to say about this song? I mean, I feel like this song is sort of like a little encapsulation of this album's themes. It's really like, if there was a title track of Uchū Nippon Setagaya, it'd be this.
I think I remember saying something like it's the most monumental song on the album. It's like the most important song. You're just saying that because it's long.
No, but thematically too.
I know, but at first you didn't agree.
It's the
at
climax.
First you didn't like
well, yeah, no, that's my thing too. Is like I used to think the song was too long. I played it for my dad, and he was like, Ray, I like it, but it goes on for a little bit too long. But now I see like that's the point. It's supposed to wear you out and make you tired.
I'm trying to think of, because this is like the songs. I'm trying to just think of like every possible element I can think of, and I don't know. I like how the end, it isn't just everything getting quieter. There's all these like weird like noises. That
Yeah,
happen,
like little
too.
ambient, like, and that's why I think I told Chris that this reminded me of like Everywhere at the End of Time by The Caretaker, which is sort of, I don't, if you haven't heard of it, it's like this 6-part album where, you know, it's sort of just old, how would you?
Like old-timey like British
Dance hall music, but not dance hall, but like in a dance hall.
Yeah.
Like, you know, with like horns and stuff. And as the albums progress, like it starts a little hazy, like sampling this music with some fuzz. But by the last album, it's just like
It's pure noise.
Pure noise, because it's representing your mind sort of slowly falling apart and collapsing. And I think that's what this song is doing, like
not
on a
in
much
6 hours.
smaller level. But it's very like effective at making you feel this sense of hopelessness.
But at least that one had some, like, at least we're at the end of time. And it doesn't end on a happy note as much. It like makes me cry. This song doesn't make me cry. This song makes me like not feel anything.
If Walking in the Rhythm was the final song on the album, I would be much sadder. But thankfully, there is another song that brings us some mysterious sense of hope, maybe.
I don't know if hope's the right word. We'll get into it. Next
Melancholic
track is Daydream.
Longing. Next track, 8th song, Daydream, the final song on a studio album by Fishmans. This is where the album gets really spacey. So if we're assuming that our character has died by this point, this is where they're ascending into the afterlife, becoming an interstellar ghost kind of thing.
Did you say Interstellar?
Interstellar, directed by Christopher Nolan. Great movie. So this was the final song recorded for the album. I was reading where apparently when Zach heard this song, he felt a foreboding sense of dread that the band would end soon.
He was right.
He was right.
Good job, Zach.
The opening honestly feels like a heavier version of In the Flight with these sort of like
those chords,
yeah, you know. And I feel like this is Fishman's, like this is the closest they get to like making a classic rock song. Like it's very much in this lane where it's big. It's like they're going big. It's like Dark Side of the Moon. Like this is our,
you know, I will accept the Pink Floyd comparison here.
It's the second. This is the third Pink Floyd comparison. I mean, the Shops compared the middle section of Long Season to Great Gig in the Sky.
Okay,
but this one really, I mean, it's just doing this very sort of like, I would say it's a thing that I've heard done before, but I don't think it's bad, because I think, you know, this album they're playing with like these ideas of music that we think is like depressing or hopeful, so they have to end it like in this big theatrical
and
fashion.
Even though like this type of song has been like done before, I think it's got enough of that Fishman's flair that it feels like, because it's very like repetitive. Because most songs that start like this, you know, or like rock songs that sound like this, I don't know, they go places. This one's kind of in the vein of this album, where it's just like repetitive and sad.
Yeah, the guitar is the really like the highlight of the song. It's deceptively simple. Like it's not really playing, like it's not what it's playing that's exciting. It's the tone, it's the weight to it, the way it's mixed. Darts, what a G. I love you.
Love you, Darts.
And once again, Hansi is providing some great violin flourishes that create this feeling of weightlessness, like you're just floating above the mix.
Yeah, because she also doesn't play a lot of like crazy things. She normally plays like these like long, sustained, like one note things. Oh.
So at 1 minute and 11 seconds, this is my favorite moment in any Fishman song, when the guitar sounds like it's crying. This is sort of like the little solo. Like the guitar ends up playing these really cool like ascending arpeggios.
Yeah.
But in this part, the guitar plays this little solo with just these notes that make me want to cry. And it's so epic. It's just like, it's big.
Man.
Oh.
And Shinji's vocals on this. Like he plays, it's kind of, when the first verse happens, or is there a verse? I don't know. When the vocals first start, it's kind of like, dare I say, bluesy in a way. Like he's hitting these like notes that sound a little off.
Dying.
Not off. That's the wrong word. But
yeah, no, I get what you mean. It's like, it's that idea of distance. Like it sounds like at this point he has ascended to somewhere else.
Yeah.
So the band is playing, but he's on another plane. He's saying goodbye, or he's already said goodbye. It's like a parallel universe.
Man.
But yeah, no. So it feels like all is lost with this guitar solo because it's just so sad. But then, then the guitar starts ascending with these arpeggios, and they're lifting us up. But they're also, they're repetitive, and it feels like you're going somewhere, but you're not really going anywhere. But that's why I say it's like it's weirdly hopeful. Because it's like it's almost like another parody. Like they're playing with this idea of like the ascending guitar line that's been used so often to be like, yeah, here we go, we're taking off into space. But here it's like you don't really get there because the song kind of just fades out really quickly. We get this cool kind of guitar solo near the end of the song where it's a bit of catharsis. And that's when it really feels like classic rock, just what the guitar's doing in like the last minute. But it's just like a minute and the song kind of just ends. It's very like it's an anticlimax.
Yeah, I remember you didn't like that at first. I remember when we played the song, you were like, oh, it just kind of fades out, really?
Yeah.
And like, I'm still a little torn on that. Maybe it could have ended, but I'm also cool with it.
Yeah, because I feel like if it ended in a more dramatic and like resolved fashion.
Or it could have done that, or it could have pulled another Walking in the Rhythm. It could have just sort of
but that's what's good
down.
is I don't know, because like they already did that on Walking in the Rhythm, so I'm glad this didn't go on for like 10 minutes of that ascending guitar. But also like I feel like I'm glad with what I'm happy with what we got. Like it's just about death never feels like it's never tidy and neat. Like you're never gonna die, and you're just like, yep, I did everything I wanted to. It was wrapped up perfectly. Like there's the sense that this song should go on a little bit longer, or there should just be more variety, but since there isn't, I think it's just a realistic take on like dying. The end.
Finality. I think this is the most. I have to think. This is definitely the most like overtly emotional song Fishmans has ever.
Oh yeah, Shinji says it's fun to die every day. I'm sorry.
Yeah, is that when he says like "Subete"?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And there's like some
once again, like I think the song is evidence that Shinji like killed himself, or at least like maybe he just had some vague premonition that he wasn't gonna make it. Like
I feel like that's a little more likely.
There's such a deep sense of like dread and like longing on this album that I don't know if there's no way some comfortable person in their life could have written these lyrics.
Man.
Yeah, the joy is temporary and we're left floating in the void. And that is how this album ends. That is how the Fishmans studio efforts end. I mean, I guess we still get Urameki. We'll talk about that in another episode. I know some people consider Urameki to be like the sort of honorary final track on Uchū. But I prefer Daydream ending the album and then Urameki being like its own thing.
At the very least, they're like complementary.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take one with it. I don't know. It's very much in the vein of Uchū, just like better.
Is Daydream in your top 3 songs?
No,
not mine. It comes really close to me too. But I mean, that one moment with the guitar solo is like literally my favorite thing in any Fishmans song. But the song itself, it really serves its purpose, I think, and it's great. All these songs are perfect. And I wouldn't end the album any other way. I wouldn't start the album any other way. I wouldn't have made the rest of the album any other way, except I might have taken out Magic Love. That's it. That's the only thing that's keeping this album back from being my favorite Fishmans album.
That's not even it for me. I don't even care about Magic Love. Like, it's a perfect song. I think I just want to mention one more thing in Daydream, near the middle. I think it's before that like guitar solo. There's these nice like waltzy little like synth noise. I don't know if you remember. There's like some twinkling going on. Oh my god, this song is also very hypnotic because it's just that chord progression over and over, this rhythm. Ooh.
Talking about this album has made me really sad.
I'm just kind of tired. I only got a few hours of sleep last night.
It's just such a good portrayal of depression and like this the inevitability of death. I think because so many, I feel like there's this misconception that depression is like weeping and like it's just like I'm so sad. But depression is more just like a gray like you're still like going through life. You're still doing all your things, but it's just
you feel nothing.
You feel nothing, and that's sort of how this album makes me feel. There is this comfort to it that's kind of deceptive, like it's there for you, and it's always going to be there for you, but it's not
going to be there forever.
It's not warm, yeah.
And I think that's interesting because most people, including me, would listen to this album and be like, okay, there's some. It's not complete. It's not like a happy album. At most, it's a bit dreary, but or at worst, it's a bit dreary. But generally, it's like a nice, comforting album.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It's not.
It's not really.
Well, it's comforting in the sense that we know that like people have gone through this before. Like if I was feeling really down and I listened to this album, I wouldn't feel alone anymore. I would feel like Shinji went through this too. He knows what's up.
What would Shinji do other than like kill himself?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the album. If you want to do top 3 tracks,
Let's
top
do
3
it.
moments. I don't know if I said my number 2 song, but my number 3 song is Backbeat. My number 2 song is Walking in the Rhythm, and my number 1 song is Weather Report.
That is an excellent
And
top
my
3.
bottom song is Magic Love.
Whatever. I think any top 3 on this album would do, even if you had Magic Love at 3.
Yeah,
2, or
Loki, if you have
1,
Magic Love in your like, if you vote for Magic Love in our upcoming poll, like, props to you.
like hit me up. Top 3 for me. Number 3 would be Weather Report.
Oh, yes.
Number 2 would be Poca Poca. Number 1, Forever and Always. Walking in the Rhythm.
Damn, our top 3s are actually more similar than I thought they would be.
Yeah, kind of.
I think my number 4 would probably be Uchū Sugata, Retreating Figure, just because like
my number 4 would be
I love it.
Backbeat.
And then top 3 moments. I just realized I didn't write down Hansi's violin solo in Walking as like a moment, even though that's clearly like the best moment in the album. So just honorary that for me. But my number 3 moment is the outro of Retreating Figure with those otherworldly Shinji vocals. It makes me feel
That's good. Yeah.
weird.
Something.
Number
yeah.
2 is the outro of Weather Report with the dueling guitars and Rek's really cool solo. Shout out Rek.
Shout out Teenage Jesus.
And then my number 1 moment before I remembered Hansi was the super simple guitar solo in Daydream right before the arpeggios start.
I think my top 3 moments. I forgot we did this section, so. But don't worry, I have top 3 moments
Yes.
at the ready. I think my number 3 moment would probably be the climax of Poca Poca. Oh man, because the whole song is awesome, but that moment really elevates everything in the song to unspeakable degree. I think my second moment would be my number 2 moment would have to be oh wait, what was I gonna say? It was gonna be the second chorus in Weather Report. After the key changes
Yeah,
and there's that
low-key.
chanting, and then that second chorus comes in with like those background
That's an
vocals.
honorary moment for me too. This whole
Okay.
album is a moment.
Moments. And then my number 1, easily that violin solo in Walking in the Rhythm.
Yeah.
Followed closely by like, I don't know, the outro to Walking in the Rhythm. Although that's less of a moment, more like 5 minutes of pure despair.
It's its own song.
Yeah. But yeah, that violin solo. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, this album is just full of like memorable shit. So yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious we both think this album is perfect.
10 out of 10. This is
It's
my
your well, aside from you like 98 more, but this is your favorite studio, right?
this is my favorite studio album, and I probably listen to this more than 98 for
Yeah,
obvious
no, yeah,
reasons.
same.
Yeah, no, this honestly might be. If I had to think about it, like my favorite studio album ever, because my other 2 favorite albums are like live albums.
This is true.
So if we take out live albums, which is a horrible idea, but if we were to do this, this would be my favorite album ever.
Yeah. I don't know if this is in my top 10 albums of all time. It's definitely in the top like 25. This is my favorite Fishman studio behind Uchū. I think like this makes me feel more than Uchū, but I think Uchū is just a little bit stronger in terms of like the diversity of feeling and just like the amount of like as a whole band thing. Because that's the other thing is the band is doing more on Uchū than they are here. This really is sort of like just Shinji being.
And honestly,
Shinji.
there's no track on Uchū that I like less than Magic Love.
I think I like Magic Love.
Even Slow Days, like I like Slow Days just like a
I think I
hair
like
more.
Slow Days less than Magic Love. So I think
Wow.
I would say that Slow Days is still my least favorite song in the Setagaya trilogy, but I think that like, you know, Uchū just has like some really iconic things.
No, yeah.
But yeah, no, so I feel like this is definitely my second favorite Fishman studio. It's the second best in the Setagaya for me. I like it more than Long
First
Season
best.
too.
That's fair. Long Season, definitely the worst of the trilogy. I'm sorry.
That's really a hot take that we have, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But once again, we're only talking about studio Long Season. I think
Well, okay, honestly,
live Long Season is better than like any music ever made. So
I mean, other than like a couple things.
Yeah.
I don't actually know if I'd say Long Season's my least favorite. Now that I think about it, point is,
they're all so good and so different. It's really, it's literally choosing a favorite child.
my favorite child's Uchū. Don't tell Long Season. I said
So
that.
yeah, 10 out of 10. And I guess that concludes the Fishman studio releases.
As albums,
As
we still have
albums,
like a
yeah.
couple. Like we have the EP, and then we have, or I guess maxi single.
Yeah.
And we have Euromech.
I'm really excited to talk about 96 live album because I've only listened to it once, so I don't really have established thoughts on that. And then
You didn't
talking
even
about
finish it.
I've listened to the rest of it.
Oh, okay.
And then talking about Gatsu. I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but Hachigatsu is actually my favorite Fishmans album of all time. I think it's incredible, and that'll be an interesting conversation. And that's also the album where we get a lot of the live renditions of the Uchū songs. Even the songs that they didn't play live in '98, we get them on Hachigatsu, so that'll be fun.
And also '97, 12/12. That features a lot of. I'm really excited to get into the Walking in the Rhythm single. I don't think you are, but I'm.
I think I've heard that stuff.
I don't know. I just think the two remixes, like the Hang Glider and the Shinjuku remixes, they're basically like ambient pieces.
Walking in the Rhythm, Night Court remix.
Only Zach.
Someone should make one of those like slowed and reverbed like remixes for Walking in the Rhythm. It'd be like
30 minutes.
30 minutes. Oh my god, I think that would actually be really cool. Hop on it. Maybe I'll do it. I'll put it on our YouTube.
Look forward to that.
Okay, so that's the episode. So yeah, just make sure to send in your top 10 all-time Fishmans tracks and ranked albums
Please.
to us. Our email is fishmanspodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on places. We always forget to plug this shit. We are... What's our Instagram? Fishmans Podcast. Yeah, Fishmans Podcast. Instagram. We're posting spicy Fishmans memes, but not often.
You can also follow
our inactive Twitter account that we never use.
I posted about the long season episode, but since only like 3 people follow the Twitter, it really didn't do anything.
Yeah, really follow the Instagram. That's where the party's at.
That's true. I'm just on Twitter more than Instagram.
Yeah.
So.
And thanks for listening. Now you can go listen to Uchū, contemplate your death, and make peace with it.
And eggs.
Because it's coming for all of us. Make some eggs while you're at it. Hey, and peace out.
Hey guys, Chris here. We just made a very incredible, important discovery that Uchū Nippon Setagaya would be infinitely better. Maybe not infinitely. No insult to Magic Love, but putting Sora Taro no Kibunsa where Magic Love is in the track list.
I'm just getting rid of Magic Love.
Getting rid of Magic Love.
It can be flows perfectly.
It is probably one of the best things I've ever heard. These 3 songs together. I just wanted to inform you guys of this discovery.
Go make a playlist. Get rid of Magic Love.
Let us know what you think, because we're right. Goodbye.